Have you ever trusted someone so much that you didn't even think twice about their motives? You think you're doing the right thing, only to find out you've been part of something that's slowly destroying you. I was, and it started with a handshake that led to my downfall. It felt so normal at first. A simple gesture, just the kind of thing you'd expect between friends or business partners. But that moment, that handshake, was the beginning of something that would unravel everything I had built, everything I thought I knew about loyalty and trust. It was a decision so small, so innocuous, that it didn't even raise a flag. How could something so harmless lead to my destruction? How could I have been so blind? I suppose that's the nature of betrayal, isn't it? You don't see it coming, not until it's already too late. And this wasn't just a betrayal. It was an alliance, a secret agreement, one I never could have imagined in my wildest dreams, hidden beneath layers of trust and deceit. I was tangled in it before I even realized it was there, and when I did, it was already too late to stop it. I'm Michael Thomas. I'm 34, living in Tucson, Arizona. For most of my life, I thought I had things figured out. I had a thriving business, loyal friends, and a future that seemed as secure as anything could be. That was until I discovered the Shadow Pact. That's what I'm calling it now, though back then, I didn't know it by that name. It was a secret alliance, a web spun behind my back, woven together by the last people I'd ever expect to be a part of it. Betrayal is a funny thing. It's quiet, sneaky. You don't hear it coming until it's too late to do anything about it. That handshake, it wasn't just a greeting. It was the start of a storm that would change everything. And in the end, I found myself facing the harsh reality of something that nearly destroyed me. And yet, I couldn't even believe it was happening. I'm going to tell you how it all started. It's not a pretty story, but it's one that needs to be heard. I used to think I had it all figured out. I ran a small but successful digital marketing agency here in Tucson, Arizona. I had a beautiful home, a car I loved, and most importantly, I had a circle of friends I trusted completely. People who had been by my side through thick and thin, through all the highs and lows. It was hard to imagine my life without them. These were the people I thought would always have my back, no matter what. There was Sarah, my business partner for the last 5 years. She was more than just someone I worked with. She was family. We had built the agency from the ground up, starting with just a handful of clients and growing into something bigger than either of us had imagined. Sarah was smart, driven, and fiercely loyal. At least, that's what I thought. Then there was Jason. We'd been friends since high school. He was the guy who could always make me laugh, who was there when I needed a shoulder to lean on. He had this way of making everything feel easy, like life was never as complicated as it really was. He had a knack for making you feel like you were the most important person in the room. But even more than that, he always made me feel secure. I trusted him like I trusted my own brother. And, of course, there was my girlfriend, Emily. She was my rock. We'd been together for 3 years, and in that time, I couldn't picture my future without her. Emily was everything I wanted in a partner, kind, loving, and supportive. I believed that our relationship was built on trust, that nothing could come between us. Life, as it was, seemed perfect. I thought I had the world on a string. A booming business, loyal friends, and a love that felt like it was going to last forever. It was the kind of life that anyone would envy. But little did I know, things were starting to crumble beneath the surface. The first cracks appeared when Sarah started acting strangely. It wasn't anything huge at first. A missed email here, a delayed reply there. At first, I just chalked it up to her being busy. After all, we were both handling so much: clients, deadlines, the growth of the business. But the missed calls began to pile up. Whenever I tried to talk to her about it, she'd brush it off with an excuse. "Oh, I've just been swamped, Michael," she'd say. "I'll get to it tomorrow." I noticed it again with Jason. It was subtle, almost imperceptible. He stopped hanging out as much, and when we did meet up, he was distant, distracted. It wasn't like him. He used to be the life of the party, the one who always had time for a beer or a game of basketball. But now it was different. Every time I asked him what was going on, he'd tell me he was just stressed with work, but I could tell something was off. And then there was Emily, the woman I trusted with everything, the one person I thought would never betray me. But she started to pull away too. Little things like avoiding eye contact during conversations or changing the subject when I'd ask her about her day. We'd spent so much time together, and I could tell something wasn't right. But whenever I confronted her, she'd reassure me, "You're overthinking it, Mike. Everything's fine." It wasn't until I started piecing it all together, these small, seemingly insignificant moments, that I realized something wasn't adding up. At the time, though, I didn't know what to think. Was I just being paranoid? Was I looking for problems where there were none? But looking back now, I see the signs for what they were. Tension was brewing, and none of us could escape it. I didn't realize it then, but I was surrounded by people I trusted, people who were, unbeknownst to me, already planning the very betrayal that would shatter everything I had worked for. I thought I had it all, a life that anyone would envy, and friends that would have my back no matter what. But little did I know, these very people were planning something that would strip away everything I had built. And when it all came crashing down, I would find myself at the center of a secret alliance, one that nearly destroyed me. I couldn't have known it at the time, but the calm was just the beginning of the storm. It hit me like a punch to the gut. One afternoon, I was sitting in my office, reviewing a new client proposal, when my phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. I didn't think much of it at first, but as I read the message, my heart sank. It was brief, almost too simple, but something in the tone felt off. "We need to talk. I can't keep this from you anymore." I couldn't shake the unease gnawing at me. A pit formed in my stomach. I quickly dialed her number, but it went straight to voicemail. It was unlike her not to pick up. She always picked up. That's when I started to wonder if I had been missing something. Had I really been that blind? Minutes passed like hours as I sat there, thinking. I scrolled through the last few days, remembering odd conversations, missed calls, and vague excuses. The more I thought about it, the more I realized something wasn't right. But nothing could have prepared me for what happened next. A few hours later, I received an email from one of our clients, an email that had been forwarded to me by mistake. My stomach dropped as I opened it. It was a private, confidential report I'd sent to Sarah just days ago, the same report that had been discussed in our last strategy meeting. But there was one problem. The email had been forwarded to a competitor. Not just any competitor, but the competitor I had been trying to outbid for months. They had access to our strategies, our plans, our numbers, everything. And as I stared at that email, one single realization shattered everything I thought I knew. Sarah had been feeding them our most sensitive information. I couldn't breathe. The shock was suffocating. My mind raced to understand how this could be happening. How I could have been so wrong about someone I trusted completely. But just as the weight of that hit me, another thought came crashing in. If Sarah was involved, who else was? I needed answers, and I needed them fast. My heart was pounding as I called Jason. No answer. Emily? No response either. I left a few frantic voicemails, but my thoughts were spinning too fast to keep up. I needed to confront Sarah. I needed to know what was going on. When I finally managed to get a hold of her, her voice sounded different, cold. The person on the other end wasn't the friend I knew. She was guarded, hesitant. She told me she couldn't meet in person. Not now. That's when I knew. She was stalling. It wasn't until I tracked her down that evening that the full truth came pouring out. Sarah wasn't just leaking our information. She was part of something much bigger. She confessed, in an almost emotionless tone, that she had been working with someone from the competitor's side for months. But that wasn't the worst part. No, the worst part was when she dropped the bomb. Jason and Emily were in on it too. My heart stopped. My closest friends, the ones I thought would have my back no matter what. They had been playing me the entire time. The betrayal wasn't just one person. It was a group. They had orchestrated this behind my back, playing their parts like actors in a carefully rehearsed show. Jason, with his charm, had been the one to keep me distracted, always pulling me away just when I was about to uncover something. Emily, the one person I trusted with everything, had been the perfect accomplice, smooth, subtle, always a step ahead, feeding me reassurance while they built their scheme. But the motives, those were even worse. Sarah wasn't just betraying me for financial gain. No, this went deeper than that. She had personal vendettas, grudges I didn't even know existed. Jason, on the other hand, had been angling to take over the business all along. He saw my success, my hard work, and he wanted it. Emily? Well, Emily had always felt sidelined in the relationship, her dreams pushed aside by my success. She was tired of supporting me when she felt like she was losing herself in the process. And now, she was helping bring me down in a way that would allow her to finally be in control of her own life. The worst part was realizing that this wasn't just a betrayal of trust. It was a betrayal of everything I thought we were building together. It wasn't just business. It was personal. I had loved these people, shared my life with them, and now they were tearing it all apart, piece by piece. The emotional fallout was instant. I couldn't sleep. The anxiety kept me up at night, the constant flood of thoughts running through my head. How long had they been planning this? Was I just a pawn in their game, something to be discarded once they were done with me? My heart would race every time my phone buzzed, fearing the next shoe to drop. I'd check my emails, my messages, as if there might be something else, something more to uncover. I felt like I was losing control. My world, the one I thought was built on trust and loyalty, was crumbling around me. I couldn't trust anyone anymore. Not Sarah, not Jason, not even Emily. Each new discovery felt like another punch to the gut. I started second-guessing every decision I had ever made, every moment I had spent with them. Were those memories just part of their manipulation? Was any of it real? And the consequences? They hit fast. Our clients were pulling back. Distrust was spreading through my team. And the business, the one thing I had worked my whole life to build, was teetering on the edge of collapse. The fallout wasn't just emotional. It was financial too. Every deal, every contract I had fought so hard for was now in jeopardy because of the alliances they had formed behind my back. This wasn't just betrayal. This was destruction. And it had been happening right under my nose, while I was too blind to see it. At first, I was consumed by anger. I wanted to confront them all, to get the answers I so desperately needed. But as the initial shock wore off, something else took its place: determination. I couldn't let them get away with this. I couldn't sit back and let my life fall apart because of their twisted plans. So I made a decision. I was going to expose the truth, no matter what it took. The first step was uncovering exactly how deep the betrayal went. I knew Sarah, Jason, and Emily were just the tip of the iceberg. They had been playing me like a puppet for months, if not longer, and I had to find out who else was involved and, more importantly, why. What was the end game? What had I missed? I spent days digging through old emails, messages, and documents, every scrap of evidence I could find. At first, it felt like I was chasing shadows. One lead after another. Everything just seemed to lead back to them. There were no clear answers, just vague connections and incomplete pictures. But something was nagging at me. Something wasn't adding up. And then I stumbled across an email. It wasn't from Sarah or Jason or Emily. It was from a name I didn't recognize. I dug deeper, tracing it back to an old business contact I hadn't spoken to in years, Daniel. He was someone I'd worked with early in my career, but I hadn't kept in touch. We'd parted on somewhat decent terms, but I didn't trust him. He had always had an ulterior motive when it came to business deals. The email was a simple one, seemingly innocuous. It discussed a potential merger between two companies I had been unaware of, and it was clear that Sarah had been involved in these talks behind my back. But what caught my attention was the mention of a larger plan, something bigger than just my agency. This was when I realized the betrayal wasn't only about me. It was about something much more. The deeper I dug, the more I realized that this wasn't just a financial play or a personal vendetta. It wasn't just about taking me down. There was something far more sinister at play. An alliance between several powerful people, including Sarah, Jason, and others I had trusted, who were working together to consolidate power in the industry. They had been planning this for years, using my business as a stepping stone to launch a much bigger operation. The betrayals weren't personal, they were strategic. This was about control, influence, and revenge on a much larger scale. They had been playing a game I didn't even know existed. My agency, my life. It was just collateral damage in their quest for power. But the twist was even darker than that. It wasn't just business. One of the key players had a personal vendetta that I hadn't even considered. Sarah, who I thought was just motivated by business interests, had her own hidden agenda. She wasn't just trying to take over my business for financial gain. She had been nursing a deep, personal grudge against me. Years ago, before we started the business, I had unknowingly taken credit for an idea that had originally been hers. I had brushed it off back then as a misunderstanding, but the email I uncovered made it clear that Sarah had been holding on to that grudge all this time. Her betrayal wasn't just about business. It was about revenge for something I had forgotten, something I hadn't even realized hurt her as much as it did. She had been plotting this for a long time, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. But as I followed this trail of deceit, I began to run into dead ends. People I thought were on my side seemed to disappear when I reached out. Former colleagues I'd trusted started to act strange, dodging my calls or offering vague, cryptic responses when I pressed for answers. And then, just when I thought I was getting closer to the truth, I made the biggest mistake of all. I trusted someone I thought would help me. A former employee who had left the company under good terms. I thought they could provide the missing piece of the puzzle, the final piece that would expose everything. But when we met up, something felt wrong. His body language was off. His responses were too rehearsed. He kept avoiding eye contact and speaking in circles, almost as if he was trying to hide something. And then it happened. The red flag I should have seen earlier. He handed me a document that, at first glance, seemed to confirm my suspicions. But something about it didn't feel right. I took it home, pored over every line, only to realize that it was filled with false information. Someone had planted it there to mislead me, to steer me away from the real answers. I had been played. Again, the emotional fallout was intense. Each false lead, each betrayal uncovered, made me feel more alone than ever. I thought I was getting closer to the truth, but instead, I was being pushed further into a maze of lies and confusion. It was as if every answer I found only led to more questions. But this wasn't the end. I knew I couldn't stop now. I had to keep going, had to expose the people behind this web of deceit, no matter the cost. I had finally done it. After weeks of digging, of chasing down dead ends, and facing betrayal from every direction, I had managed to track down the mastermind, the one who had been pulling the strings behind this entire operation, the one who had set this plan in motion from the very beginning. It was Sarah. She had been the one to set it all in motion. She had planted the seed of betrayal, pulled Jason and Emily into her web, and manipulated me into the perfect position to fall. But it was only when I finally stood face to face with her, in the dimly lit back room of a cafe where we used to have business meetings, that I truly understood the scope of the devastation she had caused. "Why, Sarah?" I asked, my voice trembling with a mixture of rage and disbelief. "Why did you do it? All of this? Everything was for nothing. You had it all, and you chose to burn it all down. For what?" She stared at me coldly, her expression unreadable. There was no apology, no hint of regret in her eyes. Just emptiness. "You think it was for nothing?" Sarah's voice was steady, but there was a sharpness to it now that I hadn't seen before. "You've always been so naive, Mike. Always thinking you were the one pulling the strings. But you never even saw the bigger picture. This wasn't about you. This wasn't about your business. This was about reclaiming what was taken from me." My mind raced. What was she talking about? Reclaiming what? I hadn't taken anything from her. Had I? You still don't get it, do you? She said, almost pityingly. This wasn't just about some petty business rivalry. It's bigger than that. This is about power, about control, about revenge. I took a step back, the weight of her words hitting me harder than I expected. Revenge, I repeated, my voice cracking. On me. You were my partner, Sarah, my closest friend. I trusted you. She laughed, but it was empty, hollow. That's the thing about trust, Mike. It's fragile. I knew what you were doing. You think you built this business on your own? You think everything you have is yours because you earned it? You were always too blind to see that I was the one who made it possible. I was the one who had the connections, the ideas, the drive. You just followed along, too busy being the face of it all. Her words cut through me like a knife. I thought I knew her. I thought we were equals. But now I was hearing that the entire time she had been using me. My success, my career, my friendships. It was all just stepping stones for her. But there was more. Something darker. Who else is involved? I asked, struggling to hold back the wave of emotions threatening to drown me. Jason? Emily? She smirked, her gaze shifting away from me, as if the weight of her actions finally pressed down on her. They were necessary, but you've always been too good at playing the hero. You were so focused on them that you missed what was right in front of you. That's when I realized the truth. The alliance wasn't just about ruining me. It was about something far more dangerous. I wasn't just a casualty in her plot. I was the distraction. Why, Sarah? I asked again, this time quieter, desperate to understand. Why destroy everything you helped build? Why tear us apart? She hesitated for a moment before answering. Because, Mike, I wasn't doing this to destroy you. I was doing this to take down everything you built, and more. Your success wasn't an accident. It was always a part of the plan. My plan. My blood ran cold. What are you talking about? The business, Mike, she said, her voice growing colder still. The one we built together. It was the perfect cover for what I really needed to accomplish. I didn't just want to ruin you. I wanted to tear down everything you've worked for. The clients, the partnerships, the networks you've built. All of it was just a tool for a much larger plan. And once your empire crumbles, I will own it all. Every last piece of it. It was like a bucket of ice water had been thrown over me. I had been so consumed by the betrayal on a personal level that I hadn't even considered the broader impact. This wasn't just business sabotage. It was an attack on everything. My career, my reputation, my life. But just as the pieces were starting to fall into place, just as I thought I had it all figured out, Sarah threw another twist into the mix. You think I'm the only one behind this? You're wrong, Mike. There's more at play here than you'll ever understand. The people you think are your allies, they're not. I'm not the villain in this story. You are. My mind spun. I'm the villain? How could she say that? She was the one who had orchestrated all of this. Destroyed everything I held dear. But that's when I realized she wasn't done. The damage had already been done. But Sarah was playing a bigger game, one I couldn't escape from, no matter how hard I tried. And now I had to make a choice. In my desperation for justice, I had already made decisions that were leading me further down the rabbit hole. In exposing Sarah and her plan, I was cutting ties with people I had once called friends, Jason, Emily. Even my family was distancing themselves. The deeper I got, the more I was losing control, losing the very things I had fought for. Justice had a price. But as Sarah's words echoed in my mind, I knew one thing for certain. This wasn't the end. It couldn't be. Not yet.